Hi, everybody. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes before we start to let people trickle in. I'll kick us off in just a minute or so. All right, I think we're going to get started. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our fall ALMA Book Buzz. We have many publishers here that are so excited to tell you about some of their upcoming books. Before we get started, I do want to mention that this is recorded and will be posted on YouTube after we're done. So if you have to head out or you miss some of it, no worries, it's recorded for you. And you can watch it as many times as you want. So kicking us off today is Melissa Croce from Simon & Schuster. So go ahead, Melissa.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Happy to kick us off. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to dive right into some upcoming spring 2024 titles. In the debut, The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan, readers are transported to Malaysia in 1935. We meet Cecily, an ambitious, unhappy housewife who has a chance meeting with the charismatic General Fujiwara, who lures her into a life of espionage, pursuing dreams of a, quote, Asia for Asians, rather enduring life under Imperial England. Instead, Cecily helped usher in an even more brutal occupation by the Japanese. 10 years later, as the war reaches its apex, her actions have caught up with her. Now her family is on the brink of destruction. Her 15-year-old son, Abel, has disappeared, and her youngest daughter, Jasmine, is confined to the basement to prevent being pressed into service at comfort stations. Her eldest daughter, Jujubee, who works at a tea house frequented by drunk Japanese soldiers, becomes angrier by the day, and an even more desperate Cecily will do anything to save them. Next. The Bullet Swallower by Elizabeth Gonzalez James is a Cormac McCarthy meets Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is a magical Western that follows a Mexican entertainer in the 1960s, Jaime Sonoro, who learns of horrible atrocities committed by his grandfather, the legendary bandido Antonio Sonoro, or the Bullet Swallower. Antonio, after a heist gone wrong and driven by poverty and grief, launched into a quest for revenge that endangered not only his eternal soul, but those of his present and future families. And unless he can discover the truth and right past wrongs, Jaime may be the one who has to pay for the bullet swallower's crimes. Be sure to catch the author at Library Journal's free virtual Day of Dialogue event on October 26th. Next. From the best-selling author Janice Hallett comes The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels. Everybody knows the story of the Alperton Angels. It's a cult who brainwashed a teenage girl into believing that her baby was the Antichrist. When the girl came to her senses and called the police, the angels all committed suicide and both mother and baby disappeared. Now, true crime author Amanda Bailey is looking to revive her career by writing a book on the case, now that the Alperton baby has just turned 18. But rival author Oliver Menzies is just as smart and also on the trail. As Amanda and Oliver are forced to collaborate, they realize that the truth about the angels is much darker and stranger than they'd ever imagined, and in pursuit of the story, they risk becoming a part of it. My coworker just finished reading this book, and she said that, normally in mysteries, she's kind of has like a laid back attitude. She feels like she can piece everything together, but she found herself taking notes during this one. So it's a fun challenge for anybody who loves to read mysteries and is not able to guess how it's going to go. Next. This is the inaugural winner of SNS's Books Like Us contest, in which editors at the company encouraged unagented writers, especially those with diverse backgrounds, to submit their stories. And as I said, this is the winner. This is The Things We Didn't Know by Elba Ares Perez. This takes place in 1950s America and Puerto Rico. Andrea is 9 years old when her mother whisks her and her brother Pablo away from Waranoco, the tiny Massachusetts factory town that is the only home they've ever known, abandoning them and leaving them with family in the mountainside villages of Puerto Rico. Months later, when Andrea and Pablo are brought back to Massachusetts by their father, they find that their hometown has been significantly changed. As they navigate the rifts between their family's values and an all-American culture, they must embrace both the triumphs and heartache that mark the journey to adulthood. I'm reading this right now, and it is so, so good. Next. All right, for cozy mystery fans, we have The Antique Hunter's Guide to Murder by C.L. Miller. Freya Lockwood is shocked when she learns that Arthur Crockleford, antique stealer and her estranged mentor, and with a name like that, could he be anything else, has died under mysterious circumstances. She has spent the last 20 years avoiding her quaint English hometown, but when she receives a letter from Arthur asking her to investigate, just days before his death, Freya has no choice but to return. Joining forces with her eccentric Aunt Carol, Freya follows clues and her instincts to an old manor home for advertised antiques enthusiast weekend. But not as all as it seems. Can Freya and Carol discover the truth before the killer strikes again? Next. And we have a new book from bestselling author Rebecca Searles, Expiration Dates. For the past 20 years, every time Daphne Bell meets a new man, she magically receives a slip of paper with his name and number on it, which is the exact amount of time they'll be together. Finally, on the night of a blind date at her favorite restaurant, her slip of paper has only a name, Jake, and no expiration date. But as Jake and Daphne's story unfolds, she finds herself doubting the paper's prediction and wrestling with what it means to be both committed and truthful. Because Daphne knows things that Jake doesn't, information that, if he ever found out, would break his heart. Next. And lastly, for something very different, horror master Stephen Graham Jones is back with The Angel of Indian Lake. This is the final installment in his trilogy of horror novels, which picks up 4 years after Don't Fear the Reaper. Jade finally returns to Proof Rock, Idaho to build a life after she took the fall to protect her friend Letha and her family from incrimination, only to find the Lake Witch is waiting for her. Now is the time for the final stand. Stephen will also be at Library Journal's Day of Dialogue, so be sure to register so you can catch him. Next. All right, please visit simonandschuster.net/library so you can browse all of our resources, including the 4 featured here. Our One Book, One Community website has all of the resources and recommendations you need for a successful community read program. The book drop features a plethora of staff picks, and it's a seasonal brochure created to help aid in readers' advisory and collection development. Book Club Favorites is a resource for, you guessed it, book clubs. And lastly, check out our Books Belong campaign, which features tools and recommendations on book bans. You can find all those links at simonandschuster.net/library. That's all for me. Thanks so much, everybody.
Hi, everybody. My name's Deb Seeger. I'm from Grove Atlantic. Just I want to quickly mention, I'm not sure, am I supposed to do the slides? So I just want to quickly mention one book that has dropped into the fall, onto our fall list, and that Paul Lynch's Prophet Song, shortlisted for the Booker Prize and already in a starred Kirkus review. Kirkus has already compared the novel to Cormac McCarthy's The Road. Others have called it Ireland's 1984. Prophet Song opens as a scientist and mother of 4, Alicia Stacks answers her front door to find 2 officers from Ireland's newly formed secret police searching for her trade unionist husband. Ireland is falling apart, caught in the grips of a government turning towards tyranny as the life she knows and the one she loves disappears before her eyes. Eilish must contend with the dystopic logic of her new, unraveling country. How far will she go to save her family? And what or who is she willing to leave behind? Exhilarating and terrifying and surprisingly intimate, Prophet Song offers a shocking vision of a country at war and a deeply human portrait of a mother's fight to hold her family together. Next slide. Next up is Invisible Woman, which I think is a perfect library reads. As A.J. Finn has already raved, attention suspense readers, get ready to gasp. Attention book clubs, get ready to argue. Invisible Woman is a wily, provocative literary thriller, classic but timely, retro yet right to this minute, with brains in its head and ice in its veins. When news of another Hollywood rape scandal breaks, Joni Ackerman, a former filmmaker now married to Paul Lovett, a powerful TV executive, reached out to encourage an old friend to expose her truth. Joni has known for decades that the accused CEO is a sexual predator because he assaulted her friend Val at a party almost 30 years ago. Val never reported the case and eventually left Hollywood. Joni has always kept Val's secret, as per her wish, but she also did because she didn't want Paul to love her less, which he would if she had told another man's secret. Now, having recently moved to New York for Paul's job, Joni is at loose ends in her marriage, in her career, and now that her young daughter is at college as a parent. And so she contacts Val to persuade her to finally tell her story. Throw in a little Patricia Highsmith, and you get a tightly paced literary thriller about the lies we tell each other and ourselves, and a powerful psychological examination of the complexities of friendship, marriage, and motherhood. Next slide. From New York Times bestselling author of Matterhorn and Deep River, Carl Merlantes comes Cold Mountain, a sweeping, pulse-pounding tale of Cold War intrigue set in post-war Finland, in which loyalty, friendship, and love are put to the ultimate test. 1947 Finland teeters between the Soviet Union and the West. Everyone is being watched. A wrong look or a wrong word can end in catastrophe. Natalia Brova from Russia and Louise Kowski from the United States are young wives of their country's military attaches. When they meet at an embassy party, their husbands, Arnie and Mikhaila, both world-class skiers, drunken challenge each other to a friendly but secret cross-country wilderness race. When Louise naively brings the race to the attention of the press, and politicians begin to spin it as a symbolic battle between freedom versus communism, Natalia knows that if Mikhaila loses, it would mean his death. Desperate to undo her mistake, Louise must reach Arnie to tell him to throw the race and save Mikhail. But how? The two racers are in a world of their own, unreachable in Finland's Arctic wilderness. This really brings Carl's great military knowledge plus his family background in Finland. So it's a great book. Coming in February, Neighbors and Other Stories introduces Diane Oliver, whose voice was almost lost to history. Diane Oliver had published only 4 stories before her life was tragically cut short in 1966 at the age of 22, just a week before graduating from the Iowa workshop. One of those stories, Neighbors, went on to win the O. Henry Prize. Now, with early praise from Disha Philbaugh, Jamel Brinkley, Donnie Walton, Dantel Moniz, and Rachel Eliza Griffiths, and featuring an introduction from Tyree Jones, Neighbors and Other Stories is a bold and haunting debut collection of 14 stories that follows various characters as they navigate the day-to-day perils of Jim Crow racism, and reintroduces the missing figure in the canon of 20th century African-American literature whose voice reverberates into the present day. This really is an incredible collection of stories. And finally, just a quick note for a book that we're publishing in April. I want to mention I Cheerfully Refuse by Peace Like a River author Leif Enger, who's one of our most beloved authors at Grove. Cheerfully Refuse epitomizes the musical, sometimes magical, and deeply satisfying kind of story for which Enger is cherished. Set in a not too distant America, I Cheerfully Refuse is a tale of Rainey, bereaved and pursued musician embarking upon sail on Lake Superior in the search of his departed beloved librarian wife. Amidst the challenges of life at sea and no safe landings, Rainey is lifted by physical beauty, surprising humor, generous strangers, and an unexpected companion. His private quest for the love of his life grows into something wide and wilder, sweeping up friends and foes alike in his strengthening wake. Leif will also be at Day of Dialogue on October 26th. As always, please reach out if you would like any of these galleys or any of our titles, and you can also find everything on NetGalley and Edelweiss. Thanks a lot for joining.
Hey everybody, I'm Ivy Weir and I am from Quirk Books. and I'm really excited to talk to you about some of our upcoming fall and early spring releases. Next slide. So Clay McLeod Chapman is already something of a library darling, so we may already have some fans in the audience. I'm really excited to talk about his latest novel, What Kind of Mother? This Southern Gothic takes Nicholas Sparks and meets the empty man as a palm reader and single mom is swept up in a cold case for a missing child. This was already picked as a best new horror read by Book Riot, Crime Reads, Goodreads, and Paste. And we just learned that it was also picked as a best horror novel of the year by Esquire. So definitely don't miss out on this creepy novel. It's especially perfect if you're still in need of a Halloween read. Next slide. Now for something a little less scary, or maybe scary in a different way since it's about dating. Sober lifestyle expert Tawny Laura helps the sober, sober-ish, or sober-curious navigate relationships and dating without the booze in Dry Humping, a guide to dating, relating, and hooking up without the booze. Not drinking alcohol can make you feel excluded from a lot of social events and interactions, but Tawny's fun and judgment-free guide can help you navigate a boozeless dating life without any awkwardness, or maybe just the normal amount of awkwardness. Next, please. Do you believe in aliens? Mark Hartzman, author of The Big Book of Mars and Chasing Ghosts, explores our fascination with UFOs and extraterrestrials in this info-packed book, which is full of history, facts, and interviews with prominent figures in UFO research. With aliens all over the news right now, from government hearings to those adorable little dudes found in Mexico, there's never been a better time for this book. Next, please. Okay, now for one of my favorite book titles to say, when in doubt, play dead. You might already know this author, or more likely you might know her possum friends. Ali Bergeres is the creator of the viral It's Me Sesame Instagram account, and in her latest book, she brings us wisdom from an unexpected source, the possum. This sweet and inspiring read gives timeless advice with a possum flair. It's positivity for anyone who can relate to the sentiment, live, laugh, scream. Early readers are already praising the illustrations by the author as magical and adorable, and I wholeheartedly agree. Next slide. The Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook has been giving you the tools to survive some of life's most dangerous or unexpected scenarios for more than 20 years, selling millions of copies and even inspiring a museum exhibit. But what about the ultimate worst case scenario? The Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook, Apocalypse, combines real survival advice with fun explorations of what-if scenarios like a robot uprising or a zombie horde. We're all a little bit prone to doom scrolling these days, and this unique combo of practical advice and genuine laughs may be just what we need to alleviate those apocalyptic anxieties. Next. Your crush on Mr. Darcy might be about to get a lot more complicated. English literature professor Rachel Fader explores Darcy as the catalyst for a trope that has lasted through pop culture history, one of an aloof, rude, or outright mean love interest who changes for the right person. Fun and feminist pop culture deep dive that touches on everything from Twilight to Lord Byron, normal people and The Bachelor, asks if divesting from Darcy is actually an act of self-care in the face of the patriarchy. This book reads like a really fun conversation with a friend and is a must-read for people who love thinking deeply about pop culture, whether they love Austen or not. I could see this being a great fit for your nonfiction book clubs because it is sure to spark debate. Next. If you, like me, are bereft at not having any more Yellow Jackets to watch right now, make sure you mark your calendar for January 16th when Jenny Kiefer's This Wretched Valley publishes. 4 climbers head into the Kentucky wilderness, and 7 months later, 3 mangled bodies are discovered. Were these accidents or something more horrifying? We had been saying that this is a great read for fans of ALMA Katsu, but you can take a look at this endorsement from Katsu herself, who says, if you love wilderness horror, This Wretched Valley is a must read. Next. Ending on a really fun note with The Z Word. The Z Word is the queer zombie horror that you didn't know you needed. Chaotic bisexual Wendy is trying to find her place in the queer community of San Lazaro, Arizona after a bad breakup, which is particularly difficult because her ex is hooking up with some of her friends. And on top of that, people around them are turning into violent, terrifying, mindless husks, which, makes things even more awkward. Um, this is a really perfect read if you have readers who liked Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin and combines queer drama with just a really fun, propulsive, gory zombie horror. I can't recommend this one enough. Next. So that's all for Quirk for today. Thank you so much for coming. Please do keep in touch. You can request DRCs for these titles and others at NetGalley or Edelweiss. We also have lots of resources available at quirkbooks.com/guides. I am a librarian myself, and I really love helping librarians out, sending them ARCs and materials, so please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thank you so much.
All right. Hello. Thank you for attending today's Book Buzz. It is Sourcebooks time. Next slide, please. All right. My name is Emily Ludloff, and I'm the Library Marketing Specialist at Sourcebooks. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest for up-to-date information, galleys, and free resources. Please feel free to email me with any questions you may have. Now on to the books. Next slide. And we're going to start with our fiction imprint, Sourcebooks Landmark. Next, please. The Last Murder at the End of the World is an inventive, high-concept murder mystery from the best-selling author of The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. On a remote island, 122 villagers and 3 scientists live in peaceful harmony. The villagers are content to do what they're told by the scientists. Until one day, one of their beloved scientists is found brutally stabbed to death. The murder has triggered a lowering of the security system around the island, which was the only thing keeping a deadly fog at bay. If the murder isn't solved within 92 hours, the fog will smother the island and everyone on it. But the security system has also wiped everyone's memories of exactly what happened the night before, which means that someone on the island is a murderer, and they don't even know it. Next slide, please. From the critically acclaimed author of Black Widows comes The Clinic. When Meg gets reports of her sister Haley dying at the remote rehab facility where she'd been forced to go to, there are whispers of suicide. But Meg can't believe it, and in her grief, she decides that the only way to find out the truth of what happened to her sister is to check in herself into the rehab clinic and investigate her sister's death from the inside. But battling her own addictions and figuring out the truth will be much more difficult than she imagined. And now she is too far from friends, family, and anyone who could help her. Next slide. And we are going to move on to some more murderous mysteries found in our Poison Pen Press imprint. Next slide, please. 27 Minutes is a propulsive debut for fans of Jane Harper and Everything I Never Told You. One question has haunted the claustrophobic town of West Wilmer for the past 10 years. Why did it take Phoebe Dean's brother and driver of the car, Grant, 27 minutes to call for help on the fateful night of the accident? Taking place over the 3 days leading up to the decennial commemorating Phoebe Dean's death, their grief will peak, dark secrets will be unearthed, and what really happened that rain-drenched night will finally become clear. Next slide, please. The Mystery Writer is a literary thriller from best-selling author Sulari Gentill. When Theo Benton shows up on her brother's doorstep with 2 suitcases and an unfinished novel, she expects to face a few challenges. What Theo never expects is to be drawn into a hidden literary world. When her mentor, a highly successful author, is brutally murdered, Theo wants the killer to be found and justice to be served. But then the police begin looking at her brother as their prime suspect, and Theo does the unthinkable in order to protect him. But the writer has left a trail, a thread out of the labyrinth in the form of a story. Next slide, please. So let's jump from fictional murder into real life murder with Sourcebooks nonfiction. Next slide, please. A Murder in Hollywood follows a real-world true crime story worthy of a Hollywood movie. From the outside, Hollywood starlet Lana Turner seemed to have it all, But when the famous femme fatale began dating mobster Johnny Steppanato, her personal life became violent and unpredictable. Eventually, the physical and emotional abuse became too much to bear, and Lana attempted to break it off with Johnny, with disastrous consequences. Johnny ended up dead on Lana's bedroom floor, with her daughter, Cheryl, claiming responsibility in an attempt to protect her mother. The subsequent murder trial made for the biggest headlines of the year, its drama eclipsing every Hollywood movie. Next slide, please. And if you're interested in more nonfiction titles, may I present to you some of our noteworthy titles from Callisto and imprint from Sourcebooks. From Callisto, you can find anything from crafts, cookbooks, mindfulness and spiritual healing, witchy guides, and more. And you can venture more at this link here. Next slide, please. All right, now on to our Bloom Books imprint for some sizzle and some spice. Next slide, please. If you are in your hockey romance phase like I am, you will want to pick up the Graham effect. Gigi Graham has exactly 3 goals: qualify for the women's national hockey team, win Olympic gold, and step out of her famous father's shadow. So far, so good, except for 2 little things. Fine. A little thing and a big grumpy thing. She needs to improve her game behind the net, and she needs help from Luke Ryder. Ryder is a 6'5" built, opinionated, rude, and sexy as hell. But he's still the enemy. The only potential snag, this bone-deep, body-numbing, mind-spinning chemistry they're trying to ignore. It's a dangerous game they're playing, but the risks just might be worth it. Next slide, please. And there are so many new and noteworthy titles coming to you from Bloom Books, and because I don't have enough time to fangirl about them with you, just know that they are here for you, and so am I. Next slide. All right, that's all the books I have for you today, but please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and don't forget to vote for Library Reads. Thank you so much.
Okay, hello. So I am Melissa Nicholas, but I'm covering for Annie Mazes today. So in the spirit of Annie, I'm going to do my darndest to fill her very kind shoes. Because generally, like, I think Annie's like a significantly nicer human than me. But listen, let's talk about some books. Next slide, please. All the Little Bird Hearts is longlisted for the 2023 Booker Prize. This is a poetic and often funny debut by an author with autism, and it's written from the point of view of an autistic mother as she and her headstrong adolescent daughter are befriended by a glamorous, charismatic couple with dark ulterior motives. We are excited about this recent edition. It's up on Edelweiss. I know a lot of you have already requested it, but please read. Next slide. Your Utopia. Oh gosh, such a fun week for Bora Chung because earlier this week she earned a National Book Award nomination for translated literature for Cursed Bunny. Anyway, and I'm sure she's going to win a ton of praise too for Your Utopia. It's another thrilling translation from the Korean by Anton Her, featuring tales of loss and discovery, idealism and dystopia, death and immortality. These stories are terrifying, but filled with Chung's wry humor and surprisingly tender moments too. Next slide. Slow Noodles is a haunting and beautiful memoir from a Cambodian refugee who lost her country and her family during Pol Pot's genocide in the 1970s, but who finds hope by reclaiming the recipes she tasted in her mother's kitchen. With over 20 Khmer recipes included, Slow Noodles will resonate with readers who love the food and emotional truth of Michelle Zauner's Crying in H Mart. And Maggie Smith loves this book too, and that just gives me the goosebumps her poetry sends me. Okay, next slide. Conscious grieving. I'm like, why am I grinning so much for conscious grieving? Like, I'm not well, y'all. But anyway, this is a book for anyone seeking guidance and support after loss. Renowned grief therapist Claire Bidwell Smith combines her personal experience of loss with her long career spent working with thousands of people to introduce a new approach to grief, one that promotes hope and even transformation. Next slide. The Swan's Nest. Yes, we need a tender and engrossing historical novel about the unlikely love affair between 2 great 19th century poets, Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barrett. McNeill brilliantly tells the story of how Robert and Elizabeth fell in love with each other's words and shocked her conservative, close-knit family and the literary world. The Swan's Nest is going to sweep up readers in this triumphant story of how two people forced to choose between a safe, stable life and the love they felt for each other. Next slide. Cemetery of Untold Stories. Yes, this is vintage Julia Alvarez. Wise and funny, light and deep, magical and magisterial, from a novel at the height of her powers. And it packs an emotional punch. Alma Cruz, the celebrated writer at the heart of this collection of stories, doesn't want to end up like her friend, a novelist who fought so long and hard to finish a book that it threatened her sanity. So when she inherits a plot of land in the Dominican Republic, her homeland, she has the beautiful idea of turning it into a place to bury her stories, literally. She creates a graveyard for the manuscript drafts and revisions, and the characters whose lives she tried and failed to bring to life still haunt her. Then the characters defy their author, and they talk back to her, and they talk to one another behind her back, rewriting and revising themselves. Finally, Alma finds the meaning she and her characters yearn for in the everlasting vitality of stories. Next slide. Cyclopean theory. You'd think I'm taking some, but anyway, listen. In Cyclopean theory, Dr. J.J. Purcell explores the next frontier in mental health, the therapeutic use of cyclopean mushrooms and related psychedelics. Readers are going to learn how the chemical makeup of mushrooms and what makes them powerful, the history of fungi, and the thought leaders of this movement and the impact of cyclopean on the brain. Next slide, please. Oh, well, that was the last slide. So I'll be back as Melissa Nicholas later. Thank you.
And hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Casterly from Blackstone Publishing. Thank you for joining us today to hear about our fall books. First, we have Slime Doesn't Pay. This is the brand new middle grade scare fest from beloved author R.L. Stine. Lots of little brothers can be pests or troublemakers, but Amy's brother Arnie becomes a real monster. R.L. Stine is one of the most recognizable names in children's literature and has sold over 500 million, that's billion with a B, billion books worldwide. He's best known for his Goosebumps series, and fans of that series will love this book, but it is a standalone, so it will bring in new readers as well. And it's available now. It came out last week. Next, we have American Girl by Wendy Walker. This was a #1 best-selling Audible original in audio, and it will be available in print and ebook for the first time. It's the story of Charlie, an autistic 17-year-old who uncovers danger lurking in her tight-knit community. Wendy Walker is the author of the psychological suspense novels All Is Not Forgotten and Emma in the Night. And her newest novel, What Remains, released in June and was a publisher's weekly pick for summer reads. And American Girl is coming out October 17th. Next, we have Last One Alive by Jennifer Grazer Dornbush. Dr. Emily Hartford is back in Chicago, ready to move forward and leave the past behind until an unexpected request for help sends her deep into an investigation and into the path of a killer. This is book 3 in the Coroner's Daughter mysteries. The first 2 books in the series, The Coroner and Secret Remains, are currently under option with Lifetime TV, and Jennifer is developing the scripts. So that will be an exciting boost for this series when those get into production. And this one has a lot of action that takes place in Michigan in the winter. So it has a great cold, spooky setting that's perfect for fall listening. And it's releasing October 24th. Next, we have Emergency Contact. From New York Times bestselling author Lauren Lane and her real-life husband, Anthony LaDawn, comes a new holiday rom-com that is sure to warm even the coldest hearts. Catherine gets diagnosed with a concussion and must be monitored for 48 hours to make sure it doesn't get worse. Unfortunately, she forgot to update her emergency contact, so the person the hospital calls is her ex-husband, Tom. This is a delightful meet-cute that's a cross between The Proposal and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review, saying a sparkling second chance romance. This is a gem. And it's coming out October 24th, so it's perfect to kick off the holiday romance season. Next, we have Dark Moon, Shallow Sea. This is the first book in a new epic fantasy series from David R. Slayton. It's a powerful story of divine betrayal, ghosts, and self-discovery. It's perfect for fans of the Dark Souls series or Mistborn by Bryan Sanderson. David is best known for his Adam Binder series, and the first book in that series, White Trash Warlock, received a Publishers Weekly starred review and was a finalist for the Colorado Book Award. For this new book, we expect crossover from David's urban fantasy audience, as well as new readers who enjoy epic fantasy. This one is releasing on Halloween. Next, we have We Are the Crisis by Cadwell Turnbull. This long-awaited sequel to No Gods, No Monsters sees humans and monsters clash as civil rights collide with preternatural forces. Cadwell's first novel, The Lesson, was the winner of the 2020 Newcomb Institute Literary Award, and No Gods, No Monsters won a Lambda Literary Award, was a New York Times Top 10 Book of the Year, and was an Indie Next pick. This book has already gotten starred reviews from Publishers Weekly, Library Journal, and Kirkus. So we're very excited about this one, and it is releasing November 7th. Next, we have Mom-Com. From #1 New York Times bestselling author Adriana Mather comes a heartwarming tale of love, family, and pastry perfection. Maddie DeLuca is coming home for the holidays, only it's not the triumphant return she hoped for because she recently had a very public breakdown on a reality TV baking show. This is a very fun one for the holidays, and it's going to be great for readers who are looking for something light and sweet, and it comes out November 14th. And then we have a few audio-only titles that I wanted to highlight. The Oceans and the Stars by Mark Helprin. The New York Times bestselling author of Paris in the Present Tense returns with a fast-paced, beautifully written novel about the majesty of the sea, a life dedicated to duty, honor, and country, and the gift of falling in love. This is going to be a great one for book clubs, and it's releasing October 3rd. And then also beloved New York Times bestseller MC Beaton's cranky, crafty Agatha Raisin is back on the case again in Dead on Target. So excited to see a new one in that series. And then next we have some new audio titles from our partnership with Disney. We've got Disney's Wish, which is the tie-in to the big Disney feature animation for the year, which is set to be in theaters in November. And also Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, One Girl Can Make a Difference, is the tie-in to the Marvel animated series on the Disney Channel. And Diamond White is doing the narration. She is the voice of Moon Girl on the series, so we're happy to have her doing the audiobook as well. And then one title to highlight coming up in 2024, Cool Food. In Cool Food, celebrated actor and philanthropist Robert Downey Jr. and New York Times bestselling author Thomas Costigan team up to discover how we can erase our carbon footprint one bite at a time. People magazine did a cover reveal of the book in August, so there's already a lot of buzz building around this one, and it's going to be out on January 23rd. And then I'm excited to let you know about a new program we just launched. Blackstone Unlimited is a new library digital audiobook platform streaming over 6,000 best-selling titles. So I encourage you to get in touch if that is something that would be of interest to your library. And finally, there is our contact information and social links. So please reach out for galleys, or if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for your time.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. I'm Katie Vaughn, the Assistant Marketing Manager at Bloomsbury, and I am so excited to be talking to all of you about our upcoming titles. I'll ask if Lainey can maybe share our Google form link in the chat so you can easily request those review copies, but for now we will jump into this first slide. In October, we have the highly anticipated historical novel, The House of Doors by Tan Tuan Eng, which was longlisted for the Booker Prize this year. It's based on famed writer Somerset Maugham's time in Malaysia and brilliantly plotted, filled with love and betrayal, colonialism and revolution, storytelling and redemption. And I can't remember the last time I heard so many rave reviews from my colleagues, booksellers, and librarians alike calling it a masterpiece. Then also in October, we have the latest from the brilliant and beloved New Yorker cartoonist Roz Chast, author of the New York Times bestseller, Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant? Her new graphic narrative, I Must Be Dreaming, is a hilarious and touching exploration of the surreal nighttime world inside her artist's mind and guarantees to induce fits of laugh crying. Then in November, we have The Core of an Onion, which is the latest deep dive from James Beard Award-winning author Mark Kurlansky. It's perfect for anyone who's been lured into the kitchen by the smell of sauteing onions, and who among us hasn't been? And it's a delectable look at the cultural, historical, and gastronomical layers of one of the world's most beloved culinary staples. And then in December, we have Medusa, which, as you probably guessed, is an astonishing reinvention of the Greek myth, illuminating the woman behind the legend. It's lyrically written and perfect for readers of Circe and Ariadne, with Madeline Miller calling it a beautiful and profound retelling and a powerfully feminist, elegiac, and original twist on this old story. Then on the next slide, we have Sugar Baby by debut author Celine St. Clair. Our protagonist is Agnes, a mixed-race 21-year-old whose life seems to be heading nowhere as she lives at home working as a cleaner. But when she meets Emily, daughter of one of her cleaning clients, who introduces her to the seemingly glamorous world of being a sugar baby in London, everything changes. Agnes is thrilled by the extravagance and attention, but she doesn't come from money like the other girls and doesn't have a safety net as she's thrown from one precarious relationship to the next. It offers sharp commentary on race, beauty, class, and self-discovery, and it'll keep readers turning the pages until the very, very end. And on the next slide, we have Cocktails with George and Martha by Philip Gepter, which traces Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf from its hushed origins in Greenwich Village's bohemian enclave, through its tormented production process, to its explosion onto screens across America, earning it a permanent place in the canon of cinematic marriages. It's a propulsive read filled with juicy Hollywood drama and intrigue, perfect for fans of film history. And on the following slide, we have the very cozy, therapeutic, and utterly charming Welcome to the Hunamdong Bookshop. This is a Korean smash hit novel translated for the first time into English that dares to ask the question that's crossed many a book-loving mind: what if I quit my job and opened a bookstore? It follows our protagonist Young-ju and a cast of wonderful characters as they take journeys of self-discovery in the day-to-day goings-on of the bookshop and coffee bar, and it's filled with beautiful reflections on community, life, and how stories teach us about ourselves. And then on the next slide, we have the highly anticipated first novel from Booker Prize-winning translator Jennifer Croft, The Extinction of Irina Ray. We have been describing this one as Glass Onion meets literary translation. It's a dark, humorous, and very drama-filled tale of 8 translators who arrive at a house in a primeval Polish forest to translate renowned author Irina Ray's magnum opus. But within days of their arrival, Irina disappears without a trace, and the translators set out into the ancient woods to find her, as rivalries, desires, and paranoia start to set in. And then one more big title for you on the next slide, The Mars House by fan favorite Natasha Pulley. This book is everything you never knew you needed, aka a queer sci-fi marriage of convenience that takes place on Mars after Earth has been evacuated due to the climate crisis. What begins as a for-the-cameras relationship between 2 enemies soon evolves into something more, but as the political situation on Mars becomes increasingly fraught, our main characters January and Gale have new enemies to contend with. It's an incredibly immersive and gripping story about privilege, strength, and life across class divisions, with a touch of romance, and it's sure to please Natasha's current fans and so many more. And then finally, on the last slide, we have all of these fantastic titles on deck as well. Mean Boys is a personal history by art critic Jeffrey Mack that delves into queer culture, Asian American identity, and our image-obsessed present, perfect for fans of books like Minor Feelings and Gay Bar. Confrontations is a bold and unsettling novel in translation, excellent for readers of Nightcrawling and fans of I May Destroy You. Float Up, Sing Down is the latest from National Book Award finalist Laird Hunt, which is a beautiful collection of interwoven stories capturing a summer's day in Reagan-era Indiana. Tough Broad is a high-spirited call for women to embrace the outdoors as they age, from Caroline Paul, the New York Times bestselling author of The Gutsy Girl. And finally, Women in Peril is a jaw-dropping, ferociously feminist debut story collection from playwright Jessie Wren Marshall, perfect for fans of collections like Shit Cassandra Saw, Her Body and Other Parties, and Bliss Montage. And then on the very last slide, that is it for us. Thank you so much for listening and being here today. And please do take a look at that Google form in the chat, and feel free to reach out to me via email at katie.bond@bloomsbury.com to request your galleys or ask any questions. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everybody. My name is Celia Madison. I'm from Ingram Publisher Service, and I'm so excited to share some great book club reads with you today. Next slide, please. First on my list is The Seven Skins of Esther Wilding by Holly Ringland, author of the best-selling The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. Seven Skins is a new story, but it's a return to the sweeping, magical world that Ringland writes so well. Esther is struggling to cope with the disappearance of her older sister, Aura. On a mission to find the truth of what happened to her, Esther unravels 7 different fairy tales about selkies, swans, and women that Aura left behind. The mystery will bring her to a series of gorgeous landscapes in Tasmania, Copenhagen, and the Faroe Islands before finally bringing her to the truth. This is a lush, stunning story of sisterhood and womanhood infused with fairy tale magic. It's a great book club pick for readers looking to really sink their teeth into a spellcasting saga, and I think it's a no-brainer for library reads, so make sure you get a DRC on Edelweiss or on NetGalley. This will be out in February of 2024 from House of Anansi Press, so get your votes in by New Year's Day. Next slide. This is one that will definitely appeal to this group. This is The Book Censors Library by Bhuthana Al-Essa, a satire about the perils of book censorship, a topic I'm sure we all know too much about. This is 1984 plus Fahrenheit 451 plus Alice in Wonderland, hence that adorable bunny on this cover. But the book censor at the center of this novel has become an insomniac since starting his new job. He spends hours poring over texts to find even the smallest bit of controversy. Any mentions of queerness, different religions, or certain histories are all off limits. But the more he reads, the more he falls in love with what has been forbidden, and those ramifications send shockwaves through his life. Translated from the original Arabic, Al-Essa is a best-selling superstar in Kuwait whose works have reverberated across the Arabic-speaking world. Next slide. Okay, if there are any Gillian Flynn fans in the room, this is your next book club read. Cole is dealing with the fresh pains of separation from his wife, but both of them have very different stories about what exactly happened between them when we start One of the Good Guys. To recover from his heartbreak, Cole moves to the countryside where he's surprised to find someone he connects with almost instantly, Lenora, a talented artist and fellow recluse. Meanwhile, we follow the story of 2 female activists whose work protesting violence against women has made viral headlines. Cole's world will collide with them when the 2 girls suddenly go missing after visiting a small town and film an embarrassing video of Cole. With very few suspects on the radar, Cole and Lenora are thrust into a public that has become obsessed with true crime and online conspiracy. Propulsive and thrilling, One of the Good Guys is a twisty novel that asks what we don't notice and what we're willing to ignore when we find human connection. This is out from Gillian Flynn's imprint from Zando in January. Next slide. Okay, switching it up a little, this is Silence Full Stop, a heart-stopping graphic memoir, by Karina Shore. Next slide, please. Here's some stills I'll show you. Karina immigrates from the Soviet Union at 6 years old, and she immediately doesn't fit in. Her desire for invisibility would only increase as she begins to process the trauma of the childhood sexual assault she survived. But Karina learns to reckon with her past and her identity, grows up to understand the cruel labels that were applied to her since childhood, and contends with a newfound identity that she alone can define. Next slide. This novel deals with difficult but unfortunately familiar topics like sexual assault, abuse, harassment, addiction, eating disorders, and body dysmorphia, but does so with sensitivity, boldness, and clarity. This story will resonate powerfully with readers whether or not they can relate to Karina's experiences, and it has great crossover potential for an older teen audience. And this is out next month from Streetwise Books. Again, it's called Silence Full Stop. Next slide. And next slide. My next title is The House of Plain Truth. This is a globe-trotting novel inspired by Heenan's own family story. Harleen has a full life in Brooklyn with her adult daughter and young granddaughter. But when her father falls ill, she returns to the family home in Jamaica to take care of him and reunites with the sibling she hasn't seen in almost 6 decades. Back in Jamaica, she begins to puzzle over the generational complexities that started when the family first fractured years earlier. A lush lyrical story with a tremendous portrait of the Caribbean at the center. Author of Pleasant View, Celeste Mohammed, said that The House of Plain Truth reminds us what a debt the world owes to Caribbean people. Ours is a story of faith, risk, estrangement, and ultimately longing. Heman's prose witnesses history with dignified tenderness and clarity. This is a can't-miss book club pick about diaspora, family, and divided loyalties, out from Zibby in hardcover next month. Next slide, please. American Mother, this is by Cole McCann, a name that hopefully everybody here is familiar with. His novel Let the Great World Spin won the National Book Award for Fiction, and he's been twice longlisted for the Man Booker. This is a fascinating new work that is his first full-length foray into nonfiction. In American Mother, he tells the story of Diane Foley, whose son, American journalist Jim Foley, was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by ISIS. In 2021, Diane had the chance to sit down with her son's killer, a British citizen who abandoned his children to join a terrorist cell. In this astonishing book, McCann and Foley tell the story of Jim's path to war reporting, and through this narrative, we come to understand not just the Foley's own tragedy, but the tragedy of all war and all violence. And we understand the transformative power in grief and tenacity as Diane Foley continues to work tirelessly as an advocate. At times a thriller, a biography, and an elegy, this is a remarkable new work that is going to resonate with fans of Patrick Radden Keefe or David Graham. Next slide. This is my last one. It's an exciting one. This is the first part of a major project from Haymarket Books, who is collecting the essays and speeches of Angela Davis into a two-part volume. I doubt anyone here is unfamiliar with Angela Y. Davis, but this is a stunning, essential piece of work that will appeal to readers who have studied one of our foremost thinkers in the abolition of violence for years and people who have never heard of her work. This is, like I said, the first part, and it's in a nice small volume that you can actually carry around, and will be out in paperback and hardcover in January. Next slide. These are all my books. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, DRC is available on Edelweiss and NetGalley, and please reach out if you have any questions.
Hi, everyone. It's Virginia Stanley from HarperCollins. Thanks so much for listening today. First slide up is Catherine Newman's Sandwich, which goes on sale in June. She was the author of We All Want Impossible Things, which was one of my all-time favorite books. It was received glowing reviews and in the Post and the Times. And this new book, Sandwich, is a novel about a woman who's facing with wit and heart the everyday and the extraordinary experiences of life, sometimes at exactly the same time. So it's about Rocky, our heroine, who looks forward to this 1 week every year Cape Cod vacation with her husband, Nick, and their two grown children, Jamie and Willa. They've been doing this for 20 years. Kids have gone off to college, so this is a good time for them all to get back together again. And Jamie has brought his adoring girlfriend, Maya. But when Rocky gets some shocking news from Maya, she's sent reeling back into the past and relives this painful summer when her kids were very little. She recalls the less tender moments that she has had to keep all to herself all these years, even hidden from her husband. So she comes face to face with her family's history and future and is forced to accept that she can hide these secrets no longer. This is a funny writer. This sounds like heavy stuff. It's mixed. It's drama, it's humor. Kate Christensen, author of The Great Man and Welcome Home Strangers, says Sandwich reminds me of Laurie Colwin's Happy All the Time. Newman shares Colwin's ability to write about intertwined happiness and heartbreak, as well as her passion for food. I found myself snorting out loud with laughter, the wheezing kind, then all at once deeply moved. Next slide. Pink Glass Houses by Asha Elias, also coming out in June. This is our runner-up for the Lead Read, which is a sales initiative that we have every season. What happens when a woman from Wichita finds herself up against the terrifying moms of the ritziest school district in Miami Beach? And Pink Glass Houses, you'll find out. There's a reason people call Miami Beach a sunny place for shady people. Welcome to Sunset Academy, the most coveted elementary school in Miami Beach, where there are 3 categories of families: rich, wealthy, and ultra wealthy. This story is told from the viewpoints of 5 different women in the community. It's irresistibly voyeuristic peek into the lives of the rich and infamous, where cocaine playdates, $100,000 kitty, birthday parties, and relentless social climbing are a way of life. This is fast, pacey, snappy dialogue. It's really fun. If you like Vanderpump Rules or Real Housewives, this is the book for you. Next up is Bad Habit by Alana Portero, coming out in April. This is told in the heartrending voice of a girl trapped within the body of a boy. It's a coming-of-age story about working-class Madrid. It's set against the heroin epidemic that ravaged Madrid in the 80s and the city's vibrant party scene that dominated the lifestyle and nightlife in the 90s. It's the unnamed protagonist. We follow her. She grows up in a blue-collar suburb that has no place for her. She forges ahead. She discovers community and kinship in downtown Madrid, lively party scene, animated by junkies and pop divas and fallen angels. But each step she takes forward, she finds herself confronted by a violence she doesn't know how to counter. It's terrifying, and it's a world where each choice can be a matter of life and death. Last book, What You Leave Behind by Wanda Morris, coming out in June. This is the author of All the Little Secrets and Anywhere You Run. Both library read selections. This is another surefire bestseller that focuses on real life contemporary issues of Black families who either bought or received parcels of land during the post-Civil War Reconstruction era. As many families did not have formal wills passing down the land or other paperwork proving their ownership, they were told that they were not the legal owners of the land and they had it taken away. This is a novel that focuses on a woman whose life has sort of fallen apart. She goes back to her childhood home in Georgia to sort of heal. She meets a man, a loner widower, who is fighting to keep land that has been in his family for generations. But shortly after this encounter with this man, he disappears and his very expensive property is quickly put up for sale. She is curious about what happened to the man. She digs into his disappearance and finds a family legacy at risk. What starts out as a bit of curious snooping turns into a deadly game of illegal land grabs and property redevelopment in poor and rural communities with dark, powerful political forces at work. Wanda Morris is a brilliant writer. She digs deep and delivers the goods. That's it from me. Thank you so much. Please visit librarylovefest.com for information on all of these offerings from HarperCollins.
Hi everyone, my name is Erica Loberg from Soho, and I am so excited to share with you some of our adult titles from our crime and literary fiction imprints. My email's on screen. If you have any questions or requests, feel free to contact me after this buzz. And with that, I will get started, please, on the next slide. From Soho Press, in January, we have This Plague of Souls by Mike McCormick. Regarded as one of the best novelists writing in Ireland today, Mike McCormick is the author of the 2016 novel Solar Bones, which was a novel written entirely in one sentence that won the UK's prestigious Goldsmiths Prize and was longlisted for the Booker. In his first novel since then, This Plague of Souls is a metaphysical noir tale that has an otherworldly feel, even as it's firmly rooted in real-world problems plaguing modern Ireland. The story follows a man named Nealon, who was previously imprisoned for an unspecified crime, but his trial fell apart due to a technicality, so now he's just been released from prison. He returns home to the west of Ireland, and he finds his house eerily empty, with no lights, no heat, and no sign of his wife and child. Almost as soon as he arrives, the phone rings and a mysterious man on the other end claims to know what happened to Nealon's family. He'll tell Nealon everything he needs to know if he'll agree to a single meeting. The man continues calling Nealon, who eventually agrees to meet in a hotel lobby as a terrorist attack appears to unfold on the TV screens behind them. The pair embarks on a conversation shot through with secrets and unknown danger in a verbal game of cat and mouse that leaps between Nealon's past and childhood and the motives underpinning a series of international crimes. In riveting and lyrical prose, McCormick delivers a terse and brooding exploration of the connections between rural Ireland and the globalized cruelties of the 21st century. This is also an incisive portrait of a young and struggling family and a ruthless interrogation of what we owe to those nearest to us and to the world at large. Hand this to fans of Cormac McCarthy, Don DeLillo, and Irish Noir. Next, please. Moving to Soho Crime, in December, we have Sunset Water City by Chris McKinney. This is the mind-blowing conclusion to the Water City trilogy, which Pace Magazine deems binge-worthy and has received a PW star for each book in the series. I don't want to spoil too much for anyone diving in for the first time, which I highly recommend doing. But to give you an idea of each book in order, Midnight Water City came out in 2021 and follows an unnamed synesthete detective investigating the murder of a scientist who single-handedly prevented a global apocalypse by stopping an incoming asteroid. In a near-future world of underwater cities, household hibernation chambers, and dystopian-level wealth disparities, McKinney crafted a darkly original vision of our global destiny inspired by the climate crisis, Trumpian politics, and the ongoing 30-meter telescope controversy in his native Hawaii. Book 2, Eventide Water City, just published in July and expands the world with an action-packed narrative that sends the nameless anti-hero on a thrilling journey to save his child and prevent a new global disaster, taking the genre blending further with adventure and even some elements of horror in there. And now, in the thrilling conclusion coming this December, Sunset Water City, the detective's now teenage daughter takes over the story in an apocalyptic world where she tries to save what's left of the human race. The series is so impressively detailed and imaginative, dealing with dark philosophical questions as it examines the lengths people will go to protect their power, their families, and the planet itself. With shades of George Orwell, Philip K. Dick, and The Last of Us in this final book especially. It's perfect for fans of suspenseful mysteries and sci-fi with incredible world building, and folks who crave that whoa moment at the end of an expertly crafted and just well built up series. Next, please. Looking further ahead in April, we have a really exciting collaboration, The Murder of Mr. Ma by S.J. Roseanne and John Shen-Yan Lee. Mystery readers, I'm sure you need no introduction to S.J. Roseanne, who's a powerhouse in the genre with over 20 novels and multiple awards under her belt. But this may be your first time hearing of John Shen-Yan Lee, who has spent over 30 years of his career behind the scenes in comics and games publishing, where he's had roles as the publisher of Marvel Comics and the senior VP of DC Comics. This impressive pair has teamed up to write a rollicking mystery that brilliantly weaves together Chinese history with the Sherlock Holmes canon, delivering familiar beats in a completely original rendition unlike anything you've read or watched before. Our Sherlock here is Judge Dee, a larger-than-life character with a high mastery of kung fu who's based on a legendary Chinese figure, and his Watson is Lao Shi, a shy academic who gets pulled into daring chases and narrow escapes on his adventures with Judge Dee. The book takes place in 1920s London and follows our heroic pair in a swashbuckling investigation as they search for a killer targeting Chinese immigrants. When I say swashbuckling, I truly mean it. The story is energetic and fast-paced with high-octane chase scenes and action-packed cinematic fight scenes. The authors actually enlisted a kung fu consultant when they were writing to make sure that the action leaps off the page with authenticity. In addition to fun, there's transportive historical detail and thoughtfulness behind the book story as it takes inspiration from the true aftermath Chinese soldiers faced after fighting in World War I. The Murder of Mr. Ma is a phenomenal collaboration that is at once a pitch-perfect Holmesian mystery and a stunning reclamation of the early 20th century Chinese detective figure. It goes without saying that this is a must-read for Sherlock Holmes addicts, but it's also highly enjoyable for fans of addictively action-packed prose and stories infused with Chinese American history. And last slide, please. That is all that I have for you. Here's my email again on screen. All these titles are available for request on NetGalley and Edelweiss, and you're welcome to contact me with any questions. Thanks so much, everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Camargo with Macmillan. Here are all the ways you can find us on the internet, so check it out for even more book shenanigans. And with that, we will head straight into the books. My first book today is Deep Freeze by Michael C. Crumley. This is a brilliant near-future thriller and the first installment in a new series. When an Army veteran is in a deadly bus crash, his life comes to an end, but he wakes up beneath hospital lights with doctors telling him everything's normal, even though he's struggling to move and breathe. As he recovers, he realizes his doctors are lying to him and things are not all what they seem. Critical information is being kept from him. So can he keep himself alive long enough to uncover the truth and figure out why it's being hidden from him in the first place? Fans of C.J. Box, James Rollins, Greg Hurwitz, John Scalzi, Sarah Gailey, all are going to love this sci-fi thriller crossover. Next up is The Longest Autumn by Amy Avery. This is a spellbinding debut fantasy about a human who gets trapped with the god of autumn, who brings with him life-threatening danger and a forbidden romance. Avery's own experience with chronic headaches and bisexuality also bring an important authenticity to this irresistible read that I think will be great for fans of Sarah J. Maas, V.E. Schwab, and Hannah Witten. Next is No One Can Know by Kate Alice Marshall. The author of What Lies in the Woods returns with a novel about sisters Emma, Juliet, and Daphne, who fled their home 14 years ago. Now Emma is pregnant and her husband has lost his job, so she has no choice but to return to the home where her parents were murdered. Emma has never told anyone what she saw the night her parents died, but being back home draws her and her estranged sisters back together, and Emma begins to wonder whether she did the right thing by staying quiet about that night. The themes of sisterhood, secrets, relationships, and buried truths make it perfect for readers of Alice Feeney, Greer Hendricks, and Rachel Hawkins. Next is When Grumpy Met Sunshine by Charlotte Stein. This is a steamy opposites-attract romance with undeniable chemistry between a grumpy retired soccer player and his fabulous and very sunshiny ghostwriter. After their business arrangement is mistaken for a budding romance, the pair must pretend to be an item for the public eye. And now they have to decide, is this sizzling chemistry just for show or something so real it might just give them their fairy tale ending? I would hand this to anyone who loves the fake dating trope, a la Take a Hint, Danny Brown, the sizzling tension of It Happened One Summer, or especially any fans of the show Ted Lasso, and especially Roy Kent. Next is The Foxwife by Yang Shichu. This is set in 1908 China. In one storyline, a woman is found dead, and her death is clouded by rumors of foxes who are believed to bring people in by camouflaging as beautiful women and handsome men, and a detective is hired to uncover the dead woman's identity. Meanwhile, the family of a famous Chinese medicine shop can cure ailments, but not the curse that afflicts them. Their eldest sons die before their 24th birthdays. When a disruptively winsome servant named Snow enters their household, the family's luck seems to change, or does it? This is filled with beautiful history and Chinese folklore and really pulls readers into a world of magic and heartbreak. Next is The Last Days of the Midnight Ramblers by Sarah Tomlinson. If you watched or read Daisy Jones and the Six and want more glamour, music, and drama, you are absolutely not alone, and this is the perfect book to fill that void. It is a gripping debut that introduces the Midnight Ramblers, who are famous for their music, backstage drama, tangled relationships, betrayals, and a mysterious death. When a woman gets accepted to work on a band member's memoir, she is set on digging out the truth of this death. But can she get into the world of rock without compromising her objectivity and her integrity? Next is Remedial Magic by Melissa Marr. The Magicians meets One Last Stop in a witchy lesbian romantasy about an unassuming librarian who has fallen in love with a powerful witch, has discovered that she is also a witch, and must save her new magical world from complete destruction. Next is The Rumor Game. Beloved author Thomas Mullen is back with a thrilling historical crime novel set in World War II era Boston. When a reporter's story about Nazi propaganda intersects with a special agent's investigation into the death of a factory worker, the two are led down a dangerous trail of espionage, organized crime, and domestic fascism. A vibrant historical atmosphere and a riveting mystery that illuminates still timely issues about disinformation and power are definitely going to draw you in. Next, Anita Demonte Laughs Last by Social Gonzalez. This is the New York Times bestselling author of Olga Dies Dreaming. This book is based on the true story of a Cuban-American sculptor. It is all about Anita Demonte in 1985. She's a rising star in the art world until she's found dead in New York City. Years later, her name is all but forgotten until an art history student is preparing her final thesis and stumbles upon Anita's story. It is a moving and wise novel and ultimately asks the question about who gets to leave a legacy. Next is Listen for the Lie. We are so excited for Amy Tintera's adult debut. After Lucy is found wandering the streets of her small Texas hometown, covered in her best friend Savvy's blood, everyone thinks she's a murderer. Years later, Lucy has started a new life in LA and still can't remember a single thing about that night. To her horror, Lucy hears that the hit true crime podcast Listen for the Lie has decided to investigate Savvy's murder. So she decides to fly back home and once and for all solve the mystery of what happened that fateful night. Anyone who is a fan of true crime podcasts is definitely going to want to pick this one up. And next is Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. The White Lotus meets Nothing But Blackened Teeth in this slyly funny, dysfunctional family drama tucked in a vacation horror novel. A gorgeous remote villa seems like the perfect place to endure so much family time until things start going off the rails. With strange noises at night, the unsettling warnings from the local villagers, and of course, the violent past of the villa itself. Diavola mixes the idyllic beauty of the Italian countryside, the raw tensions within a dysfunctional family, and the undiluted malevolence of a vengeful ghost to create the perfect dose of vacation horror. And the last book for me today is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I'm so excited. This is the New York Times bestselling author of Ninth House, Hellbent, and the creator of the Grishaverse series. This is a highly anticipated historical fantasy set during the Spanish Golden Age. It's a bit of a departure for Bardugo, but her fans, including me, are going to follow her anywhere, and we are just so excited. And that is it for me. I think my next slide has, again, that online information, so definitely check us out. Thanks again, everybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Becca Mills, School and Library Marketing Coordinator for Disney Publishing, and I'm excited to share some of our upcoming titles. You can go to the next slide. Starting off, we're going to do a great read for spooky season. This one came out yesterday. Midnight Showing is the sequel to last fall's Malice House by bestselling author Megan Shepherd. Discovering her father's strange final manuscript has brought only mayhem and darkness to Haven Mayberry's life. Now both hunter and prey, Haven travels far and wide to discover the contours of her family curse and escape the worst of her late father's creations. Drawn to the desert scrublands and Hollywood mansions of California, Haven discovers a string of murders that points directly to members of her family. And when the trail of death ends at a studio from the golden age of horror films, reality and fiction become the strangest of bedfellows indeed. Next slide. Additionally, in fiction from Hyperion Avenue, we have Mayor of Maxwell Street. When a rich Black debutante enlists the help of a low-level speakeasy manager to identify the head of an underground crime syndicate, the two are thrust into the dangerous world of Prohibition-era Chicago. After the unexpected death of her only brother, Nellie Sawyer becomes the premier debutante overnight, but Nellie has aspirations beyond society, influence, and marriage. For the past year, she has worked undercover as an investigative journalist, sharing the achievements and tribulations of everyday Black people living in the shadow of Jim Crow. Her latest assignment thrusts her into the den of a dangerous vice lord, the so-called mayor of Maxwell Street. Next, in the mooring of Mackerel Sky, debut novelist MZ marries fantasy with the everyday in her contemporary novel of a Maine lobstering town whose local myths come to life. They say Mackerel Sky was founded when Captain Burbank first saw Nimue, the mermaid, and forgot the sea. Stricken by love, he moored his tall ship and made camp on the highest cliff, hoping to forever gaze upon her beauty. 300 years later, the legend of the mermaid and the captain who loved her still invigorates and haunts the inhabitants of the small Maine lobstering town. In this close-knit town, famous for its infamous mermaids, community is built through love and lore, willful elements that the townsfolk will have to harness if Mackerel Sky is to endure for another 300 years. Next slide. From Disney Editions, as a foodie and a Disney adult, I am especially excited for this next title, Delicious Disney, Disneyland, Recipes and Stories from the Happiest Place on Earth. Bite-sized, behind-the-scenes anecdotes from Marcy Carricker Smothers and the staff of the Walt Disney Archives weave around 60 diverse recipes from the Disney chefs, including Big Thunder Ranch ribs, mint julep, and churro toffee squares, making it fit for both Disney park fans and home chefs of varying skill levels. Next slide. Now on to some incredible new titles from National Geographic. The key to longevity, experts say, comes down to what you eat, and that doesn't mean a restrictive diet. This innovative cookbook, The Power 5, by acclaimed nutritionist and doctor Michael Crupain, includes the 5 essential food groups for a longer, healthier life. Crupain provides an inspiring roadmap to revamp your eating habits for maximum health. Using a foundation of 5 key food groups, whole grains, seafood, nuts and seeds, beans, and fruits and vegetables, he crafts 75 recipes that will prevent disease and extend your life by years. Next slide. National Geographic Bucket List Family Travel is an indispensable guide by the mega popular Bucket List family. As a family of 5, the Bucket List family has swum with whales in Tonga, slept in castles in Ireland, lived on a houseboat in Amsterdam, eaten breakfast with giraffes in Kenya, spent Halloween in Disneyland, and visited more than 90 countries around the world. Now, Jessica G. brings her tips and tricks to you in the Ultimate Expert's Guide to Traveling as a Family. This beautifully illustrated guide provides all the know-how to fulfill your own family bucket list, including how-tos for picking a destination, packing, budgeting, and even surviving a 12-hour plane ride. Along with personal family anecdotes, Jess offers 50 itineraries for family-friendly destinations and inspiring top 10 lists with destinations for every age. Next slide. 3 years on, COVID is clearly here to stay. So what do we do now? Drawing on his expertise as one of the world's top virologists, Dr. Paul Offit helps weary readers address that crucial question in this brief, definitive guide. In these pages, he marshals the power of hindsight to offer a fascinating frontline look at where we were, where we are, and where we're heading in the now permanent fight against the disease. Accompanied by a companion website populated with breaking news and relevant commentary, this book contains everything you need to know to navigate COVID going forward. Filled with pragmatic analysis and sensible advice, Tell Me When It's Over is for anyone interested in finding new solutions to the new normal. Next slide. This one is a very special book. I'm started reading it. It's very good. The Cave is a searing memoir telling the story of a young doctor and activist who ran an underground hospital in Damascus. humanizing the enduring crisis in Syria. Amani Balor is a game changer who, like Malala Yousafzai, will be remembered as one of history's great heroines. Growing up in a closely confined society, she dared to dream, first of an education, then of a career that allowed her to make her mark on the world and protect the country she loves. A passionately committed humanitarian, she is determined that others will escape the horrors she survived. Next slide. And finally, from Anscape, we have Hello Friends. Dulce Sloan's first memoir is organized into essays from her life, from a childhood moving between cities, starting her own business selling toys at a Miami flea market, to being a Black kid in a predominantly white school. She's always used her masterful wit to challenge the status quo. Her purpose in comedy unfolded while navigating clubs and the set of The Daily Show. Have you ever dated an adult who roller skated or went out with a mechanic just to get free auto service? Yep, she's got that story for you. Her stories are both wildly entertaining and culturally resonant. Next slide. That's it for me. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. You can find all of our books online and look for Galleys on NetGalley and Edelweiss. And of course, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Anastasia Scott, Sales Manager for Schools and Libraries at Chronicle Books here. And I'm so excited to share some highlights from our fall list. So first up on the food and lifestyle list, we have the much anticipated follow-up from the one and only Snoop Dogg. Building off the success of his first cookbook, From Crook to Cook, which has sold over 1 million copies, we give you The Goon with the Spoon, his second foray into the cookbook space, this time co-written with his dear friend, Bay Area rap legend E40, who's also one of Snoop's earliest culinary influences. It wasn't only his friendship with Martha Stewart that launched him into the food space. Whether sharing more ambitious projects like his famous smoked brisket or bacon cheeseburger Olympia, E40 actually owns Olympia Company in Oakland, or perhaps seeing what Snoop would serve if, say, Pharrell was coming over for the Super Bowl. This cookbook has it all. And I should also add, as an FYI, this cookbook has 0 F-bombs and very little salty language. On sale November 14th. Next, we have a new book from Nick Sharma, a former molecular biologist turned blogger at A Brown Table, Serious Eats columnist, and best-selling and beloved cookbook author. Nick brings us his most cookable collection of recipes yet in Veg Table, named for his blog, A Brown Table. This cookbook combines the scientific underpinnings of Sharma's book, The Flavor Equation, with the inviting and personal recipes of his book, Season, and features more than 50 vegetables, revealing their origins, biology, and unique characteristics. Vegetable-focused recipes are organized into chapters by plant family, with storage, buying, and cooking methods for all. The result is a recipe collection of big flavors and techniques that are tried, true, and perfected by rigorous testing and a deep scientific lens. Eater and Food and Wine are calling Veg Table one of the best cookbooks of the year. And also the IACP, that's the International Association of Culinary Professionals, for those who don't know, just honored Nick with their extremely prestigious Trailblazer Award, on sale October 24th. Next up, another cookbook is Maman and Me, Recipes from Our Iranian-American Family. You might recognize mother-daughter author duo. You can see their cutest author photo ever together. Roya Sharia and Gita Sadeh from their viral cooking videos that rack up millions of views on TikTok. Gita has gone viral in particular for her uncanny ability to always find the perfectly right-sized container for leftovers. Now, their delicious cook-at-home Iranian-American recipes are available for the first time in print. You will fall in love with Roya and Gita as they welcome you into their home and share 78 of their favorite cherished family recipes that include soups and stews, main dishes, desserts, beverages, and so much more. The book takes a unique approach to Iranian cuisine with recipes and twists that celebrate the evolution of Iranian food in America. Lush, full-color photographs accompany these stunning recipes, many of which are vegetarian, vegan, and/or gluten-free, and include delicious dishes like garlicky eggplant dip, chilled yogurt and herb soup, split chickpea stew with crunchy potatoes, syrupy semolina cake, and many more. On sale October 24th. Our next title is Asian American Herbalism, Traditional and Modern Healing Practices for Everyday Wellness. In this book, Japanese American herbalist and acupuncturist Erin Misako Wilkins shares accessible and comprehensive herbal wellness practices, remedies, and recipes, all rooted in East Asian history and culture for optimal health and vitality. This comprehensive wellness guide addresses the root causes of illnesses and offers 100 easy and accessible herbal recipes to heal, uplift, and improve the quality of daily life. A central theme of this book is that food is our greatest medicine, and there's an emphasis on incorporating herbs into daily meals and drinks to address common ailments such as allergies, anxiety and depression, digestion and gut health, menstrual disorders, and sleep difficulties. For example, loquat cough syrup for a lingering cough, or perhaps you might take fresh mulberry sweet tea or an infusion of marshmallow leaf and rose to ease digestive woes. This one's on sale October 17th. Next, we have, inspired by the groundbreaking work of W.E.B. Du Bois, the New Brownies book. This one reimagines the very first publication created for African American children in 1920 as a must-have anthology for a new generation of readers. Expanding on the mission of the original periodical to inspire the hearts and minds of Black children across the country, esteemed scholar Corita L. Brown and award-winning artist Charlie Palmer have gathered the work of more than 50 contemporary Black artists and writers. The result is a book bursting with essays, poems, photographs, paintings, short stories, and more, all reflecting on the joy and depth of the Black experience. An immersive treasure trove that reminds readers of all ages that Black is beautiful, brilliant, and bold. Out October 10th. Okay, Key and Peele fans, this is the last one. We've got The History of Sketch Comedy by Keegan-Michael Key and L. Key. Part memoir, part masterclass, and hilariously embellished with priceless commentary, The History of Sketch Comedy highlights the essential building blocks of sketch comedy while interweaving Keegan-Michael Key's personal career journey and the influence of his comedy heroes. The text is complemented by exclusive essays compiled from conversations with influential performers, sketch writers, and Uber comedy fans, including Mel Brooks, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Mike Myers, Chris Rock, John Oliver, Tracy Morgan, Carol Burnett, Jim Carrey, Jordan Peele, and somehow, despite that long list, even more. This book is as entertaining as it is enlightening, and it's a must-read for all fans of comedy and those who aspire to comic greatness. This one's actually out yesterday. And that's it for me. Be sure to check out Chronicle Books on Edelweiss and NetGalley. And thanks as always for tuning in.
Hello, now I'm Melissa from Hachette Book Group, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you to Emily and Lainey for corralling and organizing all of us, and for all of you for your attention. This has been really exciting. I am going to start out with upcoming nonfiction, and then I'll shift to fiction titles. And then we're going to skip a fiction title too. It's going to be very exciting, y'all. Next slide, please. Dear Horton, the Dear Sister by Michelle Horton, sorry. Our author answers a knock on her door about 6 years ago. It's September 2017, and she is informed that her sister Nikki has just shot her partner and was now in jail. But during the investigation that follows, Michelle learns that Nikki had been hiding horrific abuse for years, and she was stunned to find herself in a situation she'd only ever encountered on television and in true crime podcasts. So Michelle rearranges her life to care for Nikki's children, and then she also launches a fight to bring Nikki home, squaring off against a criminal justice system seemingly designed to punish the entire family. In the same vein as Know My Name and Notes on a Silencing, this memoir shines light on the aftermath of domestic violence. And like few other works, it unpacks the experience of young children, the hidden nature of abuse, and the failures of a criminal justice system that often put abused women behind bars for saving their own lives. There'll be a lot of media attention, and I'm really excited for you all to hear Michelle and her sister's story. Next slide. Leslie Jamison has written 2 New York Times bestsellers, The Empathy Exams and The Recovering, and Splinters follows the tradition of nonfiction successes like In the Dream House and The Argonauts, and these books examine the dangers of relationships grown toxic and a complicated relationship intertwined with motherhood and art respectfully. What are the undue burdens that modern parenting and family structures place on women, particularly single mothers? Splinters challenges the boundaries of what's available and what should be available to women when it comes to opportunities afforded their male counterparts. Next slide. On to fiction, please. The City of Stardust is a perfect crossover fantasy. It's bursting with imaginative world building that transports readers to modern cities, hidden spots, fearsome magic, that's gained through intense study, also in blood, and delightful details that capture the whimsy and darkness of a fairy tale. Georgia Summers is earning an abundance of praise for this mesmerizing work. There's Ancient Curses, Vengeful Gods. Sounds like real life, you guys, and Keys to Another World. Next slide, please. A love song for Ricky Wilde. I love Tia Williams, and she's written another iconic love story about music and creativity, this time celebrating the glamour and history of the Harlem Renaissance. The novel's filled with Tia's signature wit and sharp insights into today's world about gentrification and the glory and pressures of Black excellence, with plenty of music, Easter eggs, and pop culture references. I promise you a swoon-worthy love story of two passionate artists drawn to the magic, romance, and opportunity of New York, and whose lives are uniquely and irreversibly linked. Yay, Tia. Still see you everywhere. Okay. Lisa Gardner has transformed her interest in police procedures and criminal minds into a streak of internationally acclaimed novels. And her beloved character, Frankie Elkin, returns in Still See You Everywhere. Frankie is an expert at finding missing persons that the rest of the world has forgotten. But even she couldn't have anticipated this latest request. She's got to locate the long-lost sister of a female serial killer facing execution in 3 weeks' time. I promise you an emotionally powerful, page-turning thriller with shades of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, and also Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. Why? Because they're descriptions of like the slice of this Pacific island that are beautiful and but yet terrifying. Okay, next slide, please. Wolf at the Table. Adam Rapp is a filmmaker and a playwright, and his experience is like a very strong influence on this novel, which is very cinematic in its scope. Set in the mid-20th century, a large Catholic family fans out across the U.S. to pursue their dreams. Although one of the siblings is probably a serial killer, and that's bad, you guys, very bad. Rapp delves deeply into the way Americans, particularly young Americans, are exposed to myriad forms of violence and the impact this exposure has over time. This novel is equally perceptive about the different shards of the American dream, that have been pursued for decades. Both Lisa and Adam will be at LJ Day of Dialogue next month. It's free to register. I know you've heard that all morning and afternoon, but register, it's fun. And we work hard on the booths and the authors, so it'll be great to see you there. Next slide, and then next slide again, please. Yes, thank you. Listen, building on the lifelong passion for books, James Patterson turned his sights to booksellers and librarians, true stories from those who devoted their lives to a single goal. So that'll be on shelves in April of 2024. Next slide. Thank you. Please reach out to library at HBG USA or visit the website for galleys. And thank you for listening. Oh, Gold is coming. She's the best.
Thank you, Melissa. Hi, everybody. I am Golda Rademacher. I'm the Library Sales and Marketing Director for Norton. And today I'm going to tell you about some of our key titles coming out in the next 6 months. Next slide. So here are some must-haves for fall, including Michael Lewis's new book, Going Infinite, which was just published yesterday. He was on 60 Minutes on Sunday, and you'll see and hear more from him in the media this week. Next slide. The Waters is a new novel by Bonnie Jo Campbell, author of Once Upon a River. I've presented this a few times before, so I'll just say that we think this would be a good pick for book clubs because there are several different themes in the book. There's a bit of women versus men, Christians versus pagans, and wild women in the swamp, all mixed up in this novel. Next slide. Wild and Distant Seas is a debut novel that follows 4 generations of women, starting with Evangeline, whose encounter with a sailor called Ishmael leads to choices that ripple through generations and across continents. Moving, beautifully written, and elegantly conceived, Wild and Distant Seas takes Moby Dick as its starting point, but Tara Carr Roberts brings 4 remarkable women to life in a spellbinding epic all her own. This is for your fans of historical fiction with a little bit of a magical element and fans of books that reimagine classic stories. Next slide. Andrew Pham's memoir, Catfish and Mandala, was a New York Times notable book, winner of the Whiting Writers Award and winner of the Kuriyama Prize. This January, we are publishing his debut novel, Twilight Territory, which is a sweeping novel of love, war, and resistance in post-World War II Japanese-occupied Vietnam. This is a time period that isn't covered as much in fiction about Vietnam, and it was inspired by the experiences of the author's grandmother and her community. Twilight Territory is a war story and a love story that offers a fascinating perspective on Vietnam's struggles to break free from its French colonial past. Next slide. So next I have Hero, a new standalone thriller from Thomas Perry being published by Mysterious Press. Security agent Justine Poole finds herself in the media spotlight after she helps prevent a robbery in Beverly Hills, killing 2 of the 5 armed robbers in the process. But now the crime kingpin behind the attempted burglary is sending someone after her. Justine finds herself up against a hardened killer and a fickle media landscape in this high-stakes thriller from the author of The Old Man. Next slide. One of the top titles coming from Akashic is the long-awaited return of Jennifer Bell with her new novel, Swana in Love. Bell is the best-selling author of Going Down and High Maintenance, and this is her first novel in 10 years. The protagonist is 14-year-old Swana, desperately looking for comfort and love from adult figures, not always in appropriate places. She falls for a man at a bowling alley and sets out to seduce him in order to get him to help her. Swana is a misunderstood teenage temptress who just wants to get an ice cream sandwich and a comfortable bed to sleep in. Next slide. And one of the top titles coming in January from The Experiment is Dear Oliver by Susan Berry. She first wrote to Oliver Sacks when he was doing a column for The New Yorker, and he ended up writing about her story of regaining 3D vision for his column. Sorry. The two continued corresponding and became real friends. These letters reveal a personal side to Oliver Sacks and tackle a lot of different topics related to science, as well as personal life, like aging and illness. Next slide. Leaving by Roxana Robinson is a story of former college sweethearts, Sarah and Warren, who meet again later in life when both of them have various family entanglements and Warren is still married. Warren is more keen, while Sarah is hesitant to disrupt her family. As their affair intensifies, Sarah and Warren must confront the moral responsibilities of their love for their families and each other. This is an engrossing exploration of the vows we make to one another, the relationships between parents and their children, and what we owe to others and ourselves. Next slide. Help Wanted is a sharp and witty tale of a group of workers at a big box store, and they're just so crazy it might work, scheme for a promotion. This is for your fans of TV shows like The Office or Superstore, and for fans of workplace novels like Then We Came to the End or Convenience Store Woman. I think this novel fits right into the current zeitgeist. It is a darkly comic workplace caper that explores the uses of solidarity and a deeply humane portrait of people trying against increasingly long odds to make a living. Next slide. So here are a few more winter titles coming out in January to April 2024. Graphic novel fans will want to watch out for My Favorite Thing is Monsters Book 2, coming from Fantagraphics in April. And David Small has a new collection of graphic novel stories called Werewolf at Dusk, coming in March. And next slide, please. So you can sign up for the newsletter through the library marketing link on this slide. That is where you will find all of my print ARC giveaways. You can also find our catalogs and many digital ARCs on Edelweiss and NetGalley. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to Lainey and Emily for setting this all up. And then thank you to all the librarians out there for all of the work that you do in your communities. And I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Hi, everyone. My name is Randy Chan, and I'm the Director of Channel Marketing at HTP Books, Harlequin Trade Publishing. I just celebrated my 25th anniversary working in publishing, and for the past 1.5 years, I've been working on the library marketing side of the business. I'm so happy that I am. Just a warning, I'm having some Wi-Fi issues today, so if I drop off, I apologize. We'll catch up next time. But on the next slide, I wanted to start off with a giant thank you for voting so many of our books to the Library Reads list this year. We've had 6 so far, including 2 bonus picks, and I love the variety here. A little bit of suspense, romance, witches, and book club fiction, which sounds just about right. And on the next slide, we have 3 books curated from our larger list that we have our fingers crossed for December's Library Reads list. We're leaning into thrillers this month, and I just wanted to call out one of these, Two Dead Wives by Adele Parks. I think Adele might be the biggest best-selling author that some of you may never have heard of, and that's okay. In the UK, Adele is a household name. She's published 22 best-selling novels in 22 years, selling 4.5 million copies in England alone. Her books are translated into 31 different languages, making her a true global writing star. She was asked to judge the Costa Book Awards as well as the British Book Awards. And Queen Elizabeth bestowed Adele Parks the MBE for her services to literature. And MBE stands for Member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. So we are talking cream of the crop. And Adele's books explore the dark sides of family, marriage, and love. And in Two Dead Wives, it's about a missing woman case that has gripped all of England because both of the women's husbands are suspects. So we follow this case and those who are affected by the missing woman. And then we are introduced to Stacy, a woman who lives a quiet life in a small village. She's a recluse. She doesn't watch the news, and she knows nothing about the missing woman. And yet, she is very much linked to the case. How, why, what, all of these things unravel as you keep reading. It's so, so good, easily my favorite thriller of the upcoming fall season. And on the last slide here, I wanted to look ahead to January 2024 highlights and 2 really strong novels, starting with Principles of Emotion by Sarah Reed. This is for all the thousands of fans who loved Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. Principles of Emotion is about Dr. Meg Brightwood, who is a mathematical genius. She's just solved the impossible theorem. And Meg grew up a prodigy in a field plagued by sexism and plagiarism. And so this is her finest moment. She's asked to present her findings at a public event in celebration of solving the theorem. But there's only one problem. Meg is burdened by anxiety. She's reclusive, and the thought of the presentation gives her a panic attack. But a solution comes in the form of Isaac, the one true love of Meg's life, the guy she dated briefly 15 years ago. He's a high school dropout and in trouble with the law, but somehow he holds the key for Meg to feel loved for who she is. And together they prove that a brilliant mind needs a strong heart. This novel has a fantastic STEMinist angle. It centers women in science and mathematics. It's perfect for book clubs with its themes of imposter syndrome, loving the person you are, and dysfunctional family dynamics in all its glory. And finally, for all those fans of The Maid or Severance by Ling Ma, comes a novel about the office night cleaner. She's the one who sorts out the messes of the daytime employees. No one knows her, but she knows everything about them. She's the office guardian angel, and one night she discovers a toxic secret about the company's CEO, a secret that will put everyone's job at risk. So she decides to take matters into her own hands. The cleaner proves that sometimes the most powerful enemy is the one you don't even see. This is a page-turning novel by an author who lived this novel. They used to clean apartments, and they wanted to provide a spotlight on the underappreciated workers of the janitorial industry. They are friends with Roxane Gay, Annie Hartnett, and other established writers in the community. And we hope you love The Cleaner as much as we did. So feel free to contact me for ARCs or just to chat. I know it's never been harder to be a librarian than right now, and I just want you to know that your publishing friends know that and want to be here for you. Thanks very much, and thanks to Lainey and Emily. Take care.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Kate McManus, and I'm coming to you from Penguin Random House Library Marketing. Just want to say thank you all for being here, and thank you to Lainey and Emily for setting this up. Can I get the next slide, please? All right, so first off, if you didn't already know, we have totally revamped our website. So you can go to penguinrandomhouselibrary.com to find all of our book club brochures, samplers, blogs, and everything else you may love from us there. Next slide. And then tomorrow we have a really exciting event. This is Rally for the Right to Read, a Banned Books Week event. It's going to be featuring Tracy Hall and Chris Jackson in conversation, as well as Dr. Ibram X. Kendi's ALA annual conference address, which, if you didn't have the chance to go, was absolutely incredible. And if you did have the chance to go, will be a great moment to relive it and really take in his message at a meaningful moment. Next slide. And then next week, we have 2 virtual events coming for you. On Wednesday, we have our morning book buzz at 11 a.m. per usual. And then next Thursday, we have our library lunch and learn, which will be at 1 p.m. Links to register are on the screen, but feel free to go to our website for more information. Next slide. All right, book so nice you get to hear about it twice. I apologize for repeating, but this is a really exciting title. This is Hello Friends by comedian Dulce Sloan. This is an essay-based memoir storying Sloan's entire life from her kind of slightly nomadic childhood to her time on the set of The Daily Show as a correspondent. Every essay is filled with as many laughs as there are lessons, and this is going to be a great read for anybody interested in comedy or those who just want a fun memoir. Next one. All right, in a bit of a change of pace, we have A Fate Inked in Blood, which is coming from Danielle L. Jensen, bestselling author of the Bridge Kingdom series. When our main character Freya is forced to marry, she spends her days dreaming of putting an axe in her brutish husband's back. That is until she is forced to marry his son Bjorn, whom she feels inexplicably attracted to. When Freya, Bjorn, and her husband discover that Freya has goddess blood and the powers that come with it, they set out to unite the nation of Scotland with Freya and her husband as king and queen. The greatest test of all, however, will be if Freya can resist her attraction to Bjorn. If Freya succumbs to her lust for the charming and fierce warrior, she risks not only her own destiny, but the fate of all the people she swore to protect. This is going to be perfect for fans of romantasy, like A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Next slide. All right, and next we have The Trading Game. Author Gary Stevenson takes us from his childhood in East London to his time at London School of Economics, where he found the way to keep up with his more posh classmates, the stock market. Stevenson eventually becomes Citibank's most profitable trader, closing deals at nearly $1 trillion when the 2008 financial crisis hits. This is a vivid, blistering memoir that takes readers inside the high-stakes drama and hubris of the trading floor, and a rags-to-riches tale of Citibank's one-time most profitable trader and why he gave it all up. Next. All right, next we have Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange. This is an eagerly awaited follow-up to Pulitzer Prize finalist Tommy Orange's breakout bestseller, There, There. Wandering Stars traces the legacies of the Sand Creek Massacre of 1864 and the Carlisle Indian Industrial School through to the shattering aftermath of Orville Redfeather shooting in There. Extending his constellation of narratives into past and future, Tommy Orange once again delivers a story that is by turn shattering and wondrous, a book piercing in its poetry, sorrow, and rage, a masterful follow-up to his already classic first novel, and a devastating indictment of America's war on its own people. Next. And last up, we have How to Solve Your Own Murder. This is a dual narrative feel-good mystery in which a woman named Frances spends a lifetime trying to prevent her murder as predicted by a fortune teller at a country fair when she was just 17. When she is in fact murdered nearly 60 years later, her great niece Annie must solve the crime to avenge her great aunt's death, and in doing so, uncovers the dark heart of the quaint English village of Castle Knoll, where she might just find herself in the path of the killer. Next. All right, again, thank you all for joining us. If anybody is interested in e-galleys, please feel free to visit this tiny URL or find them on Edelweiss. Thank you all again for being here, and I hope you all have a great day.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm so excited to share some books from you or for you from IPG, Independent Publishers Group. So I'm going to jump right in. Next slide. The first title is called Mary Makes It Easy by Mary Berry, and this is by BBC Books, and it's coming out in January. So this actually accompanies a new major 6-part primetime BBC series in autumn 2023, and the US date is coming. Britain's best-loved cook brings together a lifetime of culinary knowledge to make home cooking stress-free, easy, and always delicious with 120 brand new recipes from her new BBC series. For fans of Jamie Oliver's One, Simply Nigella, and Mary Berry's Foolproof Cooking. It's divided into clear chapters featuring one-pot recipes and 5-ingredient meals, easy bakes and desserts, as well as prep ahead and store cupboard favorites. This book contains fuss-free, crowd-pleasing food that everyone will enjoy. Each recipe is beautifully photographed and accompanied by no-fuss tips and advice on preparing ahead and freezing. Next slide. This next title is called 3D Street Art, Off the Walls. It's by Lawn Art, which is actually Michael O'Mara, the publisher, and it comes out in February. It's by Ernie Vales, and it's an exclusive look at some of the biggest 3D street artists from around the world. It's an official collaboration with renowned artists showcasing their artwork and influence, and introduced by Ernie Vales, one of the innovators of the 3D movement. Enter the world of gravity-defying 3D street art and the artists who have defined the movement. It's featuring full-color photography throughout and an exclusive list of graffiti artists from around the world. This is the first book to bring together the artists who have defined the immersive graffiti genre, and it's from New York City to Tokyo, Berlin to London, and beyond. Vales also looks at their techniques and the critical and public responses, as well as their social and political messaging, making this an unforgettable overview of 3D graffiti scene and how it's changed the face of modern art. Some really cool pictures in there. Next slide. The next title is called Sports Illustrated True Crime, Great Writing from the Pages of Sports Illustrated. And it comes out in February. Sports Illustrated is the most respected voice in sports journalism, presents a wide-ranging collection of true crime storytelling. SI's award-winning writers dive deep on stories of sports crime and punishment through expansive investigations and in-depth storytelling, featuring tales of power, deception, murder, and mayhem. This anthology traverses the globe to examine the darker element of sports past and present. This anthology features modern writing as well as selections from SI's rich archives by a wide range of renowned journalists. Next slide. And the next title is called Searching in St. Andrews. It's by Triumph Books, coming out in March, and the author is Sean Zach. He has a prominent platform writing for Golf Magazine and golf.com, as well as a nice Twitter following. He arrived in St. Andrews, Scotland, the Mecca of golf, and he was determined to spend his summer in search of the game's true essence. He found it everywhere, in the dirt, firm and proper, a sandy soil that you don't see in America. He found it in the people who inherited the game from their grandparents, who inherited it from their grandparents. At every turn, he also found Live Golf, the Saudi-backed entity which descended on the professional circuit during that summer of the 150th Open Championship. Zach's personal pilgrimage now offered him a front row seat at a cultural reckoning, one that's pitted against the game's long-standing customs against a divisive new force. So Searching in St. Andrews is the vivid chronicle of an unforgettable sojourn into the birthplace of golf. It's written with heartfelt curiosity and charm. This is an essential portrait of golf amid the crosswinds of tradition, progress, and power. Next slide. And lastly, I want to share with you, this title looks completely intriguing. It's Cleopatra and the Undoing of Hollywood. I'm sure you may have heard of this, but it's how one film almost sunk the studios. It's by the History Press, coming out in April. The author is Patrick Humphreys. This is the first book to recount the full story of the making of Cleopatra and the subsequent impact that it had on the Hollywood studio system. Finally released at an eye-watering cost of $44 million, which, allowing for inflation, sees it remains as one of the most expensive films ever made. What went on behind the scenes was far more entertaining than what actually ended up on the screen. To take advantage of UK tax incentives, the initial scenes were shot at Pinewood, but persistent rain and fog hardly created the balmy Mediterranean of ancient Alexandria. So filming was abandoned at a cost of $8 million. The production switched to Rome, which is where the real troubles began. It soon became apparent that not much acting was required to convey the romance between Cleopatra, Elizabeth Taylor, and Mark Antony, Richard Burton. The scandal soon knocked the Cuban Missile Crisis right off the front pages. Aided by the ubiquitous paparazzi, the romance heralded the birth of celebrity culture. The costs mounted. In the days before fax or email, the Hollywood studio was in a state of pandemonium waiting for the latest Roman crisis. Publicists were actually hired to help keep the film out of the press. Cleopatra nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox. It's a story of romance, hubris, pride, rampant egotism, and all played out in glorious 70mm film. Cleopatra did not finish old Hollywood, but it hammered a lot of nails into its coffin. Next slide. And you can find all of this good stuff either on our website, and we also have ARCs and DRCs available and on Edelweiss and NetGalley. So I encourage you to check it out. And you can always, of course, email me, next slide, for anything that you might need or questions that you have. So I really appreciate your attention, and thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. I am Chris Vicari of Union Square and Company. Thank you for joining us today. First, a couple of titles out right now. Next slide, please. Let's Eat, the New York Times bestseller by Dan Pelosi. Known on social media at Grossy Pelosi, Library Journal said it is just as practical as it is delectable. And The Dance of the Dolls by Lucy Ash, called great for those who enjoy a bit of Gothic intrigue. Also a starred review from Publishers Weekly there. Next slide, out later this month in nonfiction, What's Left Unsaid by Melissa DeRosa, former chief of staff to former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who will talk about being in the epicenter of the COVID crisis in New York City, a failing marriage, battles with infertility, and never before told stories behind the later fall of the governor. Next slide is The Second Sight of Zachary Cloudsley, historical fiction set in the 18th century. 6-year-old Zachary is the son of a famous clockmaker and widower. A freak accident leaves him almost blinded, and his father, feeling so responsible that he decides that his son would be better off if he was raised by his aunt in the countryside. Later, given a new eye made of gold by his father's apprentice, he begins to experience visions of what the future holds, visions that will come in handy, as it appears his father has now disappeared after taking on a dangerous job in Constantinople. Zachary, now with an astonishing gift of second sight, thinks he can help. This novel has a bit of magic to it, with themes of love, loss, and father-son relationships. Think part Charles Dickens, part Kate Atkinson. Next, Miss Austen Investigates, The Hapless Milliner by Jessica Bull. What if Jane Austen channeled her inner Nancy Drew as an amateur sleuth and embarked on a series of murder mysteries? Well, when a milliner's dead body is found locked inside a cupboard during a ballroom affair, and Jane's brother Georgie is found with jewelry belonging to the deceased, the local officials say Georgie did it. But oh no, my friends, not the case. Jane knows he's innocent. Her investigation sent her on a journey through local society, and it is through her own sense and sensibility that she will be put to the test to solve the crime and save her brother. Next slide, please. Hannah Tate, Beyond Repair by Laura Piper Lee. Hannah Tate finds an engagement ring in the closet and thinks her responsible boyfriend and father of her new baby is finally going on bended knee. But nope. A romantic night out goes south when this guy, Killian, reveals he's dumping Hannah, not proposing. Furious and heartbroken, Hannah takes their son and moves in with her mom and stepdad in the mountains of Georgia and starts a house renovation mission to save her mom from going broke. Sounds like the perfect time for River, the hot carpenter next door, to come fix up the place and awaken something in Hannah she thought was long gone. Oh my. cozy, hilarious, sexy, annotate beyond repair is the mom-com that romance readers need. Now moving into nonfiction. On addiction, research here notes that 46% of adults have a family member or close friend who is or has been addicted to drugs. That's a pretty high number. So what our author, Dr. Nzinga Harrison, does with that information is provide for us a prescriptive work, not treating addiction like it's a choice or a moral failure, but more what it actually is, something occurring in the brain of those that suffer with it, and is a chronic, though treatable, disease. She reveals factors that predict one's risk for addiction, but also expertise and data-driven insight on how to handle it better while centering it all with equity and compassion. She really asks you to unlearn what you think you know, and then shift the language and encourage the right conversations so you can save lives, save money, and help people with addictions recover and live fully. Next is The Bishop and the Butterfly, which is about a petite redhead named Vivian Gordon, whom in 1931 the police described as, quote, a woman of many acquaintances. And the New York Times said was in the blackmail business. One morning, her strangled body was found in Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx. Police later found notebooks full of names, businessmen, socialites, maybe links to Legs Diamond and Arnold Rothstein, but also a letter from an anti-corruption commission established by then Governor FDR about a police conspiracy to frame women as prostitutes. So the question becomes, was Vivian Gordon executed to bury her secrets? As FDR pressed the police to solve her murder, the trail of corruption went to the top of Tammany Hall, led to the resignation of New York City's mayor. The Bishop and the Butterfly is a great book for fans of Eric Larson, or really anyone who loves true crime and American history. Next is A Vicious Game by Melissa Blair. A new king is on the throne, and the rebellion lies in ruins in this third installment in the Halfling saga that will upend everything our heroine Kira thought she knew about her enemies and her allies as she faces her personal demons and unleashes her formidable powers. And lastly, on the next slide, an April thriller called When Cicadas Cry, a debut by a South Carolina attorney named Caroline Cleveland. In this book, a young white woman is violently killed in a rural church in South Carolina. A black man has been found covered in blood and kneeling over her, charged with the crime. A down-and-out lawyer is convinced to take this man's case by his detective girlfriend. The only question will be, can they put the pieces together in time to blast open secrets, lies, and murder in a small southern town? It's good for fans of A Flicker in the Dark, or really anyone interested in the recent South Carolina Murdaugh case. They'll find their thirst quenched here. Those are the books. And that's the way it is on Wednesday, October 4th. Thank you for your time today and for all that you do every day. Now back to ALMA headquarters.
All right, that brings us to the end of our presentation today. Thank you so much for all of our amazing presenters. And thank you to all of you for hanging out with us today for an amazing 2 hours. I hope you learned about some incredible upcoming books. As a reminder, we will send a follow-up email that has the slides and the catalog and a list of everybody who presented today. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.